Welcome to Coach SG and Friends, where we discuss topics that help you have a better relationship with yourself and others. I am Coach SG, otherwise known as your joyful friend. I'm a relationship coach and life mentor, an entrepreneur and speaker. I'm based out of Los Angeles, but originally from Brooklyn, New York. I love great music, deep conversations, and inspiring people to live their best emotional lives and create their most amazing love story. Let me introduce you to my two friends, Janessa Rose and Lisa Miranda. Janessa is the CEO of Motivational Monsters, a nonprofit that helps people activate mental health and emotional well-being through creative arts. She is the author of How to Stop Being an Effing Bum. BUM stands for Broken Urban Mentality. She's been dubbed the Tony Robbins / Cardi B of motivational speakers, and she calls herself the Galactic Goddess. Lisa Miranda is an actor and creative director. She's also dabbling in producing. She is based in Miami, New York, and Paris. She is a world traveler who speaks several languages, who loves life, good people, and good conversation. So we want to welcome you to our podcast. Let's get started. Welcome back, ladies. Welcome back. So happy to see you, beautiful ladies. So today we're going to be talking about why we need curiosity in relationships. And this doesn't, when we talk about relationships, we're not just talking about romantic partners. We're just talking about everybody that we engage with and we have some type of a relationship with. I think romantic partners and family and friends get most of our attention. But it doesn't matter what kind of relationship it is, why we need more curiosity in relationships. So who wants to start?
I guess it'll be me. All right. So, when we're curious, we get creative. We turn on the higher faculties of imagination and intuition. Like what am I feeling around these vibes? We start tapping into those higher aspects to try to figure out. We're like trying to feel out the vibes of these connections with other people. And then we create what they could be. Oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. So you know what I mean? The excitement of that comes in. And I think that helps. Even if, like your curiosity is like, I'm curious about something that might not be ideal. You know what I mean? Like I've been in connections with people where the mystery was full of like that angst, you know what I mean? Like, oh my God, the hell is this about? What's going on? And so fear can come in too and kind of like trip you up in that space. But it does keep the blood boiling. It keeps the blood pumping and it's good because it allows you to dive deeper and level up on no matter what the end result is, it keeps you getting to that next place of what's this? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'll add that I think that following your curiosity begins with following your curiosity of yourself and what's going on internally. Because I know for me, if someone's annoying me or if I'm in a bad mood because something else is going on in my life, if I make decisions from that space, I'm usually not making decisions based on love. You know what I'm saying? And it's not benefiting the people around me. But like once I get curious about how I can make myself feel better, what I can do that feels enriching, or it feels like that gets me uplifted in some way, then from that space, I know who I want to be around. I know how much time I want to give to certain things. And I think it's important to get into that good space by being curious of who you are in order to then know how to move in your relationships, whether it's a job you're not sure you want to keep or not. When you feel good, then you have the clarity to know if that's something you want, or a relationship or anything, because it all depends on how you're coming at the dilemma or the situation.
And I would say, I think, one of the needs that we have in relationships is to be seen. And I think if we're not curious about our partners and we make assumptions about what makes them feel need and seen and valued, we usually love the way we love instead of really tapping into what it is that the other person needs in order to feel seen and heard. And the only way you're going to do that is by asking questions. And, and I'm still not perfect at this either, because what happens, right? We have a relationship and I did this, right? I'm like, I want this kind of, I want to feel this way in my relationship. So if I want to feel this way in my relationship, like, well, what kind of qualities and person am I looking for? And, you find those qualities, but the truth is still, you're still creating this beautiful space together. And what we're trying to do is fit each other in each other's boxes instead of saying, no, here's the box that we're creating together. Here are our rules of engagement. Here's, let me know how what it is that you need to thrive and to feel seen and to feel heard and valued. And we ask the same of that person. But I think, I know from me personally, I'm doing all this self-work, but sometimes I forget about the person because I want them to like kind of cater to me instead of like, we're creating this beautiful space together. And that says, what is it that you need right now? And how can I support you? And I think curiosity is what helps connection. And when we're not curious and we make assumptions is where we disconnect. So have you guys had any experience with this recently in any relationship, not just romantic, just any relationship?
Absolutely. What you're saying is it's so dope and it's so true. It really shines light for me personally about the fact that I must have been in connections with people who were not in that space. What you just said just really bust open something for me. Like the box that we're creating. It's clear to me now at this very second that no one has ever intentionally created a box with me. It was more like, oh, we have to create a box together. Yeah, no, I don't. You know what I mean? And then the curiosity came in with like, what do you mean? Like, I thought you wanted a relationship. So for me personally, the disconnecting part of connecting with people came because they realized that I had this box, like, oh, hey, I'm curious. What do you want in this box? And like that analogy was so dope for me just now. I think that people in my past connections, that part of curiosity was not turned on for them. It was really about their box, how to keep their box, and occasionally, come over to my box. Like, oh, you got a box? Can I come in? You know what I mean? Like, that's it. And that's a double entendre. Come into my box.
Right.
But that's exactly what I felt when you just said that. And now, because of that happening over and over and over again, because I'm always curious. I'm so curious. You know what I mean? Like, what's in your box? What do you like in your box? What color do you like? What this, what that, to the details. And I'm always, trying to fulfill people's boxes and create, not even fulfill their boxes, create new boxes. And I think that's what always caused my connections to have a rift, because that was like something I don't think that the other partners were really wanting. It was just like, let me just open your box.
I think I look at it more as like, I have a box, right?
Yeah.
This is what my world was like before I met you.
Right.
And they have, their environment of this is what it looked like before I met you. These are my beliefs. These are my values, right? And then
Right.
we get together and then we try to force each other in. Here's my values and here's yours. We're trying to force each other into each other's boxes instead of saying, okay, here's the box we're going to create together.
Yeah.
But we're both going to collaborate on the creation of that box. But go ahead, Lisa. I'm sorry.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I love what you said about curiosity and connection. I think for me, in like a professional way, getting more curious about other people's opinions and knowing that it doesn't, being curious isn't a weakness. Asking other people to be part of things and for their insight can be something really transformative in a good way. And it's not like, oh, you don't have good ideas or you can't manage on your own. And I know, like for me, I had something that I've just kind of been sitting on for like a year now. And then just this week, I was just like, you know what? I need to collaborate. And I hit someone up. He watched the project that same night, created a group chat the next day, boom, 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 boom. And it was just like, I just had more progress in something by being curious about someone else's ideas than I had the entire year on that project. So being more inviting to other people's ideas, and also maintaining my ownership. At any moment, I can also say, okay, great, thank you, but I don't see it going in that direction. So yeah, understanding that I can be open and share, and not fearful that something that's mine is going to be, sabotaged in some way, because I realize I hold a lot of that, and I still when I'm in places, I still I'm very I'm always checking out what kind of animals I'm around, and my ideas, knowing that they are bigger than me and that they do come from someplace divine, how I can use that collaboration to bring things into reality and not to see it as a hindrance.
Mhm.
I have experienced that on huge levels my whole life. And
Which part?
the fear of being free with my creating and wanting to collaborate. Like you said, like being afraid that somebody will take it or turn it into something else or whatever. And most recently, I decided to stop saying that, because I always said, everyone always takes my ideas. Everyone always wants me to do the work. Everyone loves my ideas, but hate to give me credit for it. I would say that would always happen. And I would forget that that's me manifesting it. That's me calling it into that experience to myself. So most recently, I started to really embrace collaborating and allowing people to share. And I realized that my power was I was a leader and I was a visionary, that I didn't really necessarily, even though I didn't want to do all the work of all these ideas and all these things. I needed people to shine in these projects. So like, for instance, right now, I am the art director of a new TV series coming up with some friends. And I'm ecstatic about it. And it's been keeping me completely busy. What I'm really great at is leading. That's what I'm really great at. That's where I excel. And if I wasn't curious about how do I look when I'm constantly being, I don't want nobody to know this idea, or I don't want to share this, or you know what I mean? How does I started to wake up to the idea that I'm a little rigid. I'm scary and intimidating to people that just want to be a part of the high level energy that I have and the creative aspect that I have. What I'm best at is the vision, the ideas, and that allowed me to start connecting more with other people and release that rigid, fearful, paranoid part of self. And now my projects are way more fun, and they're actually getting done. So
Whenever I'm having any kind of tension, and with family members or with anybody that's close to me, or in work also, I think one of the things that Lisa mentioned about being curious about yourself, I think that's the most important part first. Being curious about what it's bringing out, what it's drawing out of this situation, right? And then being curious about more about them, because we make a lot of assumptions, right? If people don't do what we want them to do, we go like, this is what it always is. I get that way sometimes with, family members that maybe I'm helping financially or whatever, and maybe things are not taken care of. And then I'm like, they're using me. You go right to your fears instead of, let me meditate, let me get my vibration high, and now let me ask some questions that is not accusatory, but questions about like, hey, what's going on? This is what, we kind of talked about. So I just want to know what's happening with you, because, you didn't show up or you didn't do whatever. And I think that's the part of curiosity that we need more of. So I just want to know if you guys have some times where you've applied it in your life where we can allow people
I have a question for you, Sherelle, because I know for me, if I'm disappointed or upset, it might take a long time for me to be able to have a conversation that's not accusatory, but is still progressive. So how do you figure out when's the right time to have that conversation, that you're not, pointing the finger at that person or reprimanding them? How do you know when it's the right time?
Everything is personal, right? I can't give you a specific time about you. As you're doing this personal work, you have to know there's going to be times where you're doing the best that you can, or you have to say what you need to say, because maybe you've spent all this time not saying what you need to say, and that was the best thing you could do at that time. So there really isn't a right or wrong. It really is a right for you at the right time. And oftentimes I just feel like, I know for me, if I'm feel like things are getting heated and it's not productive anymore, I have to disconnect. And I have to find a way to disconnect on a compassionate way, or the best way that I know how. And so they don't feel like I'm running away, but I'm just saying, hey, I really want this to work between you and I want to get to a solution. I just really need to take a walk. I need to take a break. I'll call you back or whatever.
I got to tell y'all, I'm having like, I got like a horseshoe right here, right now. That's exactly what's going on. I have just been accused. I didn't want to talk. I was trying not to, but
it's better to release it.
Okay. So for the last couple of months, I've been working with someone who's older, who's a family friend. And I do understand that they don't have the tools that we have, people like us and maybe some of our viewers. But they have been super accusatory, disrespectful. And I was just like Sherelle said, quiet, trying my best to, express myself in a polite, professional way. Like, listen, this is not how you speak to somebody. This is a very accusatory vibration. It doesn't help me to feel comfortable. I think you should ask me. We should hold conversations before you just accuse me. But this person doesn't have the tools. And so what's happening is it's like, we know it's not really us. It's everything to do with them. And I know that because I have the tools. However, because I kept being nice about it and taking my time and meditating and breathing it out, and I was taking all of those steps, and they kept on accusing me. And then the accusings went from like small, tiny, tedious little, maybe, to outright, like out of this world type of accusing. After I explained to them how those attacks were wrong and explained why that wasn't the case, they also went and created a lie that was hurtful, basically trying to insinuate that I went behind their back and did some grimy shit in business and put myself in a whole bunch of shit that could really ruin my company, my nonprofit, and my reputation professionally. I absolutely lost it, and I blacked out on this person, but not in a disrespectful way, but just in a like,
in a respectful way of blacking out.
Right. Explain that part.
Okay, so when you be like because what Sherelle was just saying is what like triggered this. Sherelle said, when you just like, yo, you know what, I had enough, like you just blow up. Usually that's what we do. That's exactly what it was. I was like, that's it. That was the thought process. Like Sherelle said, you just be like that. I was like, yo, that's it. I'm gonna let him have it fully. But I didn't like talk at him. I didn't call him names. Instead of processing or asking questions or communicating with me, that you're afraid that I'm probably taking advantage of you, which I'm not. You're accusing me and you're ruining our connection in business. And now, because of that, you are a liability to me and my business, and I cannot move forward with you in business. And it hurts.
So how did you use the curiosity to get you through it?
I didn't.
I got you riled up now. I got you riled up.
Sorry. I was trying like so hard to keep like whole like weeks I've been pushing this down. I don't even know, to be honest. I don't know if I even used curiosity. I was trying my best to use my tools and my things that I know how to use. But now maybe I need to use the curiosity. Maybe you can help me use the curiosity. I don't know.
Here's the thing, because there's no right or wrong way to do this. So you did the best that you could, and there's no reason to feel bad about your response. It was the best response you could give at the time. But here's what happens sometimes when we are doing all this self-work. We feel like we must be perfect and we got to do it the right way because people are watching us. But sometimes, certain people, activate more of our fears or more of our, most often it's just fears, right? So you worried about what it's going to look for you, like for your company, your business, and your future, right? So that's what got activated. So that's what helped you explode. And also the part of like, because you did the right thing. If you set aside time and you're writing and you're doing your meditation and all that, sometimes we still can't get to the other side because we just can't, right? We're maybe we're around them way too much or something. So we just kind of do the best that we can. But I think where the curiosity comes in, this is where I would say we have to get better, is that, like you just said, I told him truth. You told him your truth, not his truth, right? This is the truth for you. So where curiosity lies is like, we're creating that, here's the box, right? Not here's my box and my truth, here's your box and your truth. Here's the box that we're creating together. So what you've done has really affected me, and it made me feel this type of way. But that's not what we do, because that puts us in a vulnerable place.
But I did do that though. I did in this.
No, and I'm not judging it. So I want to make sure that I say it in a way that comes out where it feels like I'm being helpful and I'm not being judgmental.
No. I don't think you're being judgmental. I just, while you're stating it in a general sense, I am really trying to figure out my personal shit. So I'm like, I know you're not judging. I'm just, I did that several times. That's
right. I think, when we say, like, okay, so I had a situation, and I can't tell the details of it because I don't want to expose, and it was something that I felt like, trying to say it without like saying it, where I feel like I offer everything. You don't ever have to ask. I offer, and it's not because I want to be paid back, but I do want to be reciprocated in some way, right? So we had this exchange, and the way they took what happened, and just I can't even find the words. The way that they reacted to me was kind of vile. It was like, I guess I put them in so much fear that all this negative vitriol type stuff came out. But I decided I am doing this work. I am meditating. I am writing. Called me all kinds of names. And I just was like, how in the world, like, how did this happen? But you know what I learned from that is that situation actually taught me it taught me to grow, right? Because this person was always kind of like a bully in my life. They were always somebody that they say something and it gets me all out of sorts, but I stood in my power and I didn't respond in the way that they wanted me to. So I didn't get that activation, like, oh, doing all that, because that's what they wanted from me, but that's not what they got. It was like, okay, well, this is when it's going to happen and whatever. And I really just stood my ground. Everything got resolved within a couple of days. And now, but what I had to do is I had to be curious about what it was doing to me. That's the stuff that's hard, right? It's hard for you to look at you and wonder why it's creating this thing inside of me, but what I realized was that I needed to grow. I needed to grow in that specific relationship. Everything happened for me for a reason, so that I could stand in my power in this certain situation. And I got through it. So I think for you, with the situation that you're talking about, this business person, is that sometimes you just got to disconnect from the person for a minute and go like, why is this getting me all out of sorts? Okay, yeah. I'm in fear about, because they threatened me. They threatened to expose me on social media and all this stuff. And I was like, go ahead, do what you have to do, because everything is always working out for me. At least that's what I was thinking in my head. Right. And none of that stuff actually even happened. I didn't give it all the pressure that they wanted me to give it. And we got through it, and now everything is wonderful.
I have a question for you on that, Sherelle, because I know for me, people that I take care of, that I love, that I'm there for, once they do something like that, it's really hard for me to ever trust them for real again. So I have like a lot of relationships like with family, where it's just like, you know what, I don't even feel bad, but it's like, I put a big block there, and it's, like a big do not enter sign, and they can't penetrate to it. And most of the time they don't even try, because I don't play that. But how do you get back to having a relationship with someone when there's all of that kind of, when you see that it's not, your generosity on the other side doesn't equal a thank you, and you know what I'm saying, in a moment that's difficult for you, you're just getting another rock thrown at you as opposed to a hand.
Thanks. Slowly. I don't think I was like I first had to take care of myself, right? I had to take care of myself. I had to nurture myself. I had to figure out what was going on. And then once it got to a better place, I just thought like, what it made me realize is that I didn't want to be a victim. I do all this stuff for everybody else and they don't do it, they don't return it. Well, one, that makes me powerless. That makes me a victim. And what it should make me is aware. But what I realized is I needed more mature relationships. That's what it was, right? But I also had to ask myself, was this a relationship I wanted to keep? I wasn't real sure at first, right? But then I realized I became more curious about how they reacted. And what I realized was that they had some irrational fears that I couldn't speak to in a rational way. Because like, if we just take this subject on aside, if there was like a big, huge rat in the house, nobody can tell me, well, he's smaller and da-da-da. I don't want to be anywhere near, I don't want to talk about it, right? So this person just had an irrational fear. So they reacted in a way those are their tools. It told me what their emotional tools were with vitriol and, they were just a mean person, right? But are they always like that? No, they were really like that in this situation. So I realized that we can't collaborate on this subject. We can only collaborate on these subjects. And as much as they want to collaborate on those subjects, I'm not going to be a part of it because we can't collaborate in kindness. We can't collaborate in compassion.
So I guess I'm trying to figure out what the boundaries look like in those kind of situations, because I have family members some that are older than me that I know love me, right? But I also know that they're extremely toxic. But I could then analyze why they are that way. And they're also lonely. But it just feels like now it just makes more sense to, like a Merry Christmas message than to be like, hey, how are you? How are things going? Because I know that that it's just toxic, that I can't do that for them as like a charity. But and because of my upbringing, I'm taught I'm supposed to do that. But it doesn't really advance the relationship because they're just so negative. Although I do believe they love me. So I guess I'm at a place in my life, and I hope I can cross over to just seeing people's weaknesses and being able to have something to do with them despite that, as opposed to where I'm at, where if I think the characteristics that you're showing are harmful to my peace of mind, I don't really want anything with you.
What I was going to say with that is that it brought me clarity and awareness. What it brought me was that I had more people around me, or should I say, I had a desire to have more people around me that would pour into me. I was pouring into them, and I made it really about this situation, but really it was I had a desire. I wanted somebody where this wouldn't happen, right? So what I decided after that was I'm going to move away from, I decided based on that situation, I'm going to move away from all these people that I feel like it's always like what I can give them because I'm doing okay and I'm doing well. So I got to always give to them. But I realized I want people to pour into me. I deserve that. Right. So it made me make some different decisions, not just with that person. And once I have more people around me that are pouring into me, that situation doesn't bother me as much because now I know they don't have the emotional tools. Like, remember how we were saying, we got to let people have their emotional journey. And the way we let their emotional, and this is where boundaries come in. You can let them have their emotional journeys, but you can't let them, attack you and do all this stuff. But what I have to do is when I talk to this person that's negative or toxic or whatever, I have to, Abraham talks about creating a segment. Like I have to go like, okay, I'm about to call this person. They get me riled up. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to take some time. And then I'm going to know that I'm calling with the intent to see how their day was, not for them to pour back into me, whatever, because I want to continue to have this relationship. So I call, how are you doing? Da, da, da. I really have an interest. And then I get off.
What's the point? What's the point? I don't mean that in a sarcastic way. What's like the point?
That I love and I value the relationship, so I want to keep it. but I don't call them for like stuff like this. Like if I'm going through something, I'll call you guys. I won't call, that person, because that's not the person I can rely on, but it's enough where I want to have a relationship. The other people, I just decided I'm going to distance myself and I'm going to let it happen organically. If we get together and it's great and it feels great, I'm going to let it do that. But I'm learning how to have better relationships. So I want to learn how to have good ones. So I not to repair the broken ones, but there are some broken ones I still want to have. I want to have relationships with people in my family that I feel like maybe don't have all those tools. But what I know is that if they had a physical ailment, right? If they couldn't walk or whatever, I would be compassionate towards it. I wouldn't ask them to hold all my bags and all that. So if they have an emotional ailment, right? They don't have the tools to get them up the emotional scale and all that. I can't be mad how they're reacting to me, but I can have boundaries. That's it.
Yeah, it just feels like for me that when it comes to family and for my situation, I feel like, yes, some of them are handicapped, but it's like they have bullets in their hands and I just got to go like this. And then I'm just like, but if there's even a chance of one bullet even maybe hitting me, then what's the point?
So this is the point. The point is, and this is what I was trying to say before Cheryl went into that, right? It's the same thing. It's very simple. Do I value this relationship? It could be my aunt. It could be, I have an aunt who I adore, and she was my favorite aunt, but we have fights. Whenever I'm around her, she triggers a lot of other stuff in me. And I love my aunt and adore her. But I have become curious. Do I value the relationship? Do I need her to be my favorite aunt? Do I need to hold her to these expectations that I had at some point of her that she clearly is incapable of and doesn't value either? Because if she did, she would work on it, right? No, I don't. So now it's just like we said, I'll like the Merry Christmas text. And I'll call her when I need certain things, or when I'm at that intention of I'm calling her to check on this and this, or when to do this or whatever, and that's it. But the real question is, whoever it is, do I value this relationship? Most of the time, whether they are blood or not, no, I don't value it. It doesn't add to it, and so therefore I can detach. But there's certain people in the family that I will and I do value and I do want the relationships. And
there's certain people that maybe will activate you a lot more than others. Like there's people in my family, they get whatever, and I could just be okay and get off the phone. And there's other ones where I really value what they say. I love them a lot and whatever. So when they say stuff, it really gets me. And there might be a history of habits. If you and I are sisters, right? And we are always getting into it, we have a habit of how we engage. So you do something, I get upset. So as long as I keep doing what I always do, I'm not going to have a different experience. But if you start getting loud and whatever, and I don't, and I say, you know what, honey, I'm going to have to get off the phone now. When you want to talk, when your voice is lower, hey, honey, I got to get off the phone right now. This is how you get your power. It doesn't have to be, I don't know. So whatever, unless, they're coming for you. That's a different one. Janessa said they get into some physical altercation. So that is the long-term habits that they have where they're triggering each other. Janessa's getting triggered, the aunt's getting triggered. And until one of them says, I'm not going to let you trigger me, it's going to be different. But sometimes you have to go through that in order to know what your boundaries are. Sometimes you do have to fight and you have to curse people out. You have to do all this stuff and not judge yourself, but understand I'm still getting better. I hit her and I know I shouldn't have, but I'm still getting better.
And let me tell you,
teaching me about myself and what I still need to grow.
Yeah, I want to say that, the same way we're talking about taking responsibility for our own curiosity, right? And even though we are tapping into the points of not being able to trust people because we fear that they're going to hurt us or take advantage of us or steal from us or whatever it is that triggers us, right? sometimes these people who are, as we feel or we see as coming at us or whatever it is, that point of us becoming to, let me tell you this, or let me put my hands on you, or whatever our reaction is, they just because the universe is always working out in our favor, everyone's favor, it is, even if you're in the mind state as the other people of, I need to tell them what it is, or I'm gonna trigger them. Our responses, no matter what they look like, verbal, physical, whatever, those are the shifts that need to jolt them too. Not like it's our job, like, oh, let me punch them in the face so they can wake up to this truth. That's not the logic. Although it sounds a lot like that when we're in that moment. But the truth is that when we shift back, or when we resist back, or when we give them that back, they also have the opportunity to say, let me get curious. Why did that happen? And it's up to them, the same way it's up to us, the same way we're holding space right now and saying, yo, what, what does that look like in us when it triggers us? That's why those things are occurring too. So like Sherelle said, we got to be nice to ourselves. We got to give ourselves where we're like, yo, you know what? Yeah, you punched her in the head. You might have shouldn't have did that. Now you know. Why is it that when she comes around, you ready to rock her? That's when you start looking at yourself. So even though we might even be negatively affected, or we go into our lower selves, or we're triggered and we have a lapsed judgment, it also is going to give the other person the opportunity to get curious too. So, and a lot of the times they learn too. Some people, they learn too. If we value the relationships, and if they value the relationship, they will get curious. And even if we're not willing to say, hey, you know what, I'm glad you got curious, we can patch this up. Let's say we're like, nah, I can't trust you, and I think it's best for me that we disconnect. Maybe in their future and their next connections, this experience will help them be better with others. And that's not our business. We shouldn't be in the space of, well, I punched them in the head, so I taught them how to act. Nah, we shouldn't be in that space. You know what I mean? But hopefully they will go into their next experience with the next person. Like, you know what? This turned out ugly in the past, so maybe I should be this way. Hopefully that's, I think that's how the universe really wants to teach us, in my opinion.
I love that. And I think, you know what, Lisa, don't be hard on yourself either. I think it's really about like, because we can't run away from every situation, but we can definitely put ourselves in more spaces where we feel comfortable. And, one of the things we were talking about, and I listen to Esther Perel all the time. She's a relationship therapist. And she was just saying, Janessa uses this word all the time about the dynamic between two people. So, you know how we're talking about the two boxes, right? I have my own box, you have your own box. And now that box that's outside of us that we're both creating, that's the dynamic between the two of us. So we're co-creating, right? So we can look at how they're making us respond, or we can get control of how we respond so that we create something different with them. And it's hard. Like there's certain people that I'm just a certain way with them. They get my goat, and some other people don't. They get my goat, but I have to go like, okay, so what do I need to do so they don't get my goat? Sometimes I got to be on the phone at shorter times. Sometimes I have to make sure I don't just call them whenever. Like sometimes if they'll call me, I got to look at it and I go, am I in the space to take this call? There may not be anything happening, but I just feel like, so I'm mindful of that. And then as I do more of that, I feel like I grow. So now I'm being more of a leader of what we're creating instead of them making me respond to them, because that's what we do. We react to each other and manage each other instead of, who do I want to be in this situation? And I know this last situation where, they were talking to me all crazy, and I was in disbelief. But I just had to keep asking myself, who do I want to be in this relationship? And I wanted to be empowered. I wanted to be as compassionate as possible. I don't want to have to clean up any type of mess, right? And I wanted to understand what my boundaries were. So even if they wanted to talk to me, you gonna talk to me? No, I didn't talk to them, and it made them upset and whatever. But you know what? They got to cool off.
Let me ask you real quick before we go. Do you feel like after your experience that they shifted? Like, did you standing in your power have a positive effect on the relationship? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, because once it resolved, then now they're feeling guilty and bad for their behavior and how they responded, because what happened was they were just in a lot of fear. And so when everything resolved itself, they were fearful that things were going to resolve. So now they're really watching what they say. But what it taught me, though, is that that's a trigger for them. So I need to be mindful that that's a trigger. I can't want them to be different. I've got to know that it's a trigger, just like if there was a rat in the house, right? And somebody's like, you need to calm down. I'm not fucking calming down. I'm jumping on things, you know what I mean? Like, I have an irrational fear around it. So now I understand more about her, right? I understand that I had to be curious. Okay, this is a real deep, irrational fear that I don't understand. So I need to be mindful of that and not trigger that, because then I trigger all this other stuff. So we don't go into that space where those things are really fearful for her.
You know, and as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, so there's a lot of good things that came out of this. You became a light into something, and now you're considering being sensitive with her, or your person with that. And then they also resolve themselves and realize, I shouldn't allow that fear, even if they recognize it as a fear or not, but whatever it is, they're also aware now and starting to move around that with more respect for you. So both people have grown, right? Just by being curious and giving time, and like you said, staying in your power, and not being responsible for how they feel about it. So it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful. It's hard work, but it's clear that both parties want and value the relationship and the connection.
So one of the other things we were talking about, the dynamic between the two people, is, you know, what Esther Perel was saying, it's what you're drawing out of each other. It's not really a union of two people. It's really the co-creation of the two of you and what you're drawing out of each other. So I drew something out of her that I didn't know about, but I wasn't curious about it, because to me, it didn't make a lot of sense. and she was drawing stuff out of me and didn't give AF about it. None of us were curious. We were just reacting to each other. But how I moved through it was by standing in my power, focusing on, being compassionate and not trying to prove her wrong, but just be clear about what it is that I needed.
Sherelle was saying, it made me think about some of the relationships that I had cut off. And it was before I had this kind of awareness and had done the work. So for me, it seemed, when these situations seem like I'm put in a compromised situation that's just really too much for me, I saw this as a good opportunity to, cut my losses and be out. But now I'm thinking, this could really be more of a conversation of boundaries. And even as I listen to what you're saying, Janessa, it seems similar, because instead of throwing the whole thing away, creating these new boundaries that are so concise. It's just like, this is where we go to. Like, I feel like if I had, for me, it's with certain family members, like if we were still, communicating right now, I think they would not come at me in the same kind of way or have the same kind of expectations, because my boundaries would be a lot more clear. And they weren't before, because I love to help. I love to give. I love to make people smile. And I took this as a huge, like a job. So I think for me, understanding that I can create, I have the power to create the boundaries that decide what kind of relationships I'm having with certain people, or people that I care about or love. Now having that boundary, I think today, if I was in that same place 5, 6, 7 years ago, we could still have a relationship, because now I know I don't have to do everything that I could possibly do for someone in order to have a relationship. I could still say, this is as much as I can do for this person, or this is as much as I could be there for this person. Because I also know, for me, there was off balance, and that's why the stuff would hurt so much, because I was so off balance trying to take care of other people and their needs, and then it just felt like just stabbing me every time that, they would do things that would hurt our relationship, hurt me. And then I would still be expected to perform. So that's why for me, it was that I washed my hands clean of a lot of people. But today I understand I could just simply no, I don't do that. This is all I can give you.
I think that, our partners or whoever it is, whether it's our business partners or if it's, our family members or romantic partners, we want to create a space where they feel heard and seen as well, even if we don't understand it. And as much as we want that in return. So we've got I think curiosity, it alleviates all the tension when we're asking questions and not making assumptions. I think it encourages more positivity. I think it creates more connection. And it allows space for change. It allows space for, I think when you're in a relationship, like two people are in a relationship, if you're not being curious about what's happening with each other, then you're not creating the space where you can evolve and change. We just want each other to just remain the same so that we can predict what's going to happen. I think it also creates interest instead of judgment. I know for me, especially people that I'm close to, we know what behaviors look like. We know when people are being manipulative. We know when people are being jerks and when they're just trying to make life difficult for us. But I think we've got to also remember that people are in their emotional journeys and, whatever they're expressing emotionally is just like if they were expressing themselves physically, they were hurt in some way. We just look at emotional hurt as bad and we don't like it. When I think, we just need to, give more compassion to each other. And I think it allows space for vulnerability. When we were talking about before that, I was saying that that was a huge fear for someone that, I was dealing with. And it was an irrational fear that I couldn't understand. But just because I didn't understand it doesn't mean I created a space, for her to be vulnerable. I wanted her to create a space for me to be vulnerable, but I didn't want to offer that back because I didn't like the way she was behaving. So if I don't like the way they're behaving, it's about me creating more boundaries and being more creative and how I'm creating those boundaries and how I'm talking to the person, because not everybody is okay with the same kind of communication, so just understanding what it is. Like, I know in my personal relationship, if she is being defensive, I sometimes have to sit with myself and go like, what did I say to draw that defensiveness? I must have said something to make her feel like she's got to prove her point or whatever, instead of saying, you know what, maybe there was a different way I could have said it. And if I don't do that, if I'm not more curious about what I'm drawing from them, and they're not curious about what they're drawing from me, then we're not creating this great, beautiful collaboration or this, creation together.
I definitely am curious about other people's feelings, and I really make it I take real big effort to consider that first. But when I recognize, like you said, when it's evident that a person is not focused on your emotions too, like they're not reciprocating that consideration or that curiosity, it is what it is. That's when that's when it's evident that it's not working. And like for me personally, in my situation, now I'm more curious, especially after this episode, as to why am I so worried about how I look when I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like I know that I've taken the effort to be curious about how they feel, how I speak to them, how I'm moving, what's my intention in this business connection and this relationship. I've journaled about it. I've met it. I've prayed. I've even shared with other people to ask, like I've definitely considered it. So I need to worry about I need to get more curious about how am I affected about my choice, my definite decision moving forward. Because I am clear that this person is incapable, that they're a liability to me professionally, and they emotionally, they're committed to attacking me and to not really trusting me. They're committed to that. And I know
and they are displaying the emotional tools that they have in their arsenal. So
Yeah.
So knowing that, you get to approach it in a different way. And also knowing that everything is working out for you and that this situation is actually teaching you more about growth, about, okay, I can't change anybody around me. There are going to be some crappy people that just want to make people's life miserable because their lives are miserable. And I can just let them be miserable, but how do I still get my needs met, and how do I still get the goal met, when they're in that. And that's where the creativity, where you got to grab creativity, because that's what your superpower is, right? You're super creative. So that's what we have to do when we're going through these emotional obstacles, right? So how do I get super creative when somebody is creating this narrative that's not true, that they're responding in a way that they just don't have the emotional tools, and they're making me look a certain way? How can I get creative to move through this? And that's the part that, we just have to learn. You could get excited about that, or you could, be in the feelings of what's happening, because Thank you for a good discussion. I hope that we offer some tools about curiosity to help you move through some things in your relationship. We're here to just make things easier for you. So whether it's a romantic relationship, family, business, whatever it is, adding more curiosity will move you up the emotional scale than being in some tension. So we'll see you next episode.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
My joyful friends, that's our show. Thank you for listening. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe and leave a review. Share this episode with someone you think would get some value out of it. We look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. Bye-bye now.